Welcome to First Air. Hey, Kevin Hansen, how are you?
What's going on, George Smith? How are you?
I'm doing great. This is our first episode. This is so much fun. This is going to be
Here
a
we are.
hoot. Here we are. So, why don't we take a few minutes and for our listeners to get to know us? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that would be a great way to kick off this podcast. We have, I think, a lot of really fun and exciting stuff in store. And might be a good place to start of like, who are these voices? Who's Kevin and George? What are
Right.
we all about? What makes us tick? And yeah, I think that's maybe a good place to get started.
Well, sure. I think it's a great idea. So let's start with you. What is your background? What got you into sterile compounding?
Oh man, what got Kevin Hansen into sterile compounding? So let me rewind back. This is 2007. What is
Oh, wow.
2007 like? This was before USB 797, I
Yeah,
guess.
for
Maybe
sure. Yeah.
that's an interesting time to enter into the pharmacy profession. But I was actually in between careers, a career change, and I remember asking my dad. I was like, what job can I get without having to go back to school, right? Because all my friends had associate's degree, bachelor's, and these things, and said, you could consider pharmacy technician. And looked at getting my CPHT, fast forwarding, and then boom, I got my first job in a community hospital.
Oh,
And
wow.
it was a smaller community hospital, but it really introduced me a lot to pharmacy because, you could do all of the different jobs within, the pharmacy, filling first orders, delivering medications to the automated dispensing cabinets. And then one day I got tagged with my trainer, Lois, and she introduced me to, and I'll put this in air quotes, the clean room, right?
Ooh,
And
the clean room.
this ominous area, the sticky mats, and you had to get garbed up to go inside, and was just very, very interested in what was going on with sterile compounding and why are we dousing everything in alcohol. And it was really this driving force from a curiosity standpoint. And even linking back before this, I remember as a kid, I actually got to do one of these go to work with your dad, fun things. And my dad is a pharmacist.
Oh, I didn't even know
And
that.
so,
Wow. I didn't
yeah,
know that.
yeah, he is a pharmacist. So growing up, what is it like growing up with a pharmacist, George? I had Viagra calculators, a Viagra wall clock. I don't know what it was about Viagra. Maybe it was just the great marketing, but it seems like we had pens everywhere and things growing up. We had an empty vial of TPA of like when that first hit the market. So that's what I grew up with. But the pharmacy never really clicked with me just because my dad was a pharmacist until I really got to go to work with him. And just like I saw, with Lois in this clean room here, I got to see my dad fully dressed up. You got the hairnet, you got the mask, you got the gown, you got the shoe covers, of course, that sticky mat,
In
the ominous sticky mat.
2007, he was wearing all that.
Oh, this was even prior. This was
Wow, that
prior
is
to
that
that.
is
So I was,
way ahead of his time because
that's
in
right.
2007 there were clean rooms that people weren't washing their hands to go in.
That's right. Well, and again, we'll call it a clean room, to say
Okay,
that there
okay,
was an ante room. Maybe not. uh, you know,
understood.
so there's some gaps, but it's okay. But it was more just that ominous nature, looking into this dark room and seeing these glass vials and this big metal box, which I know, today is the laminar airflow. There was just this natural curiosity of like, wow, this work is interesting. It's curious. It has me asking a lot of questions. And so that was always the theme for me of getting in, of like linking back almost to like my childhood. But then, having all of these different things in pharmacy, but compounding really always being that center of that driving force of my curiosity about, these practices and learning more about, that doesn't really seem right. Should we be spraying everything down with alcohol? Should we be wiping it? Just like these natural questions that I would ask in the day to day as a pharmacy technician. So curiosity kept, me moving forward. And fast forward, certainly, followed my curiosity, became a pharmacist and did a residency, and I got to be a pharmacist checking compounds in a very high volume academic university setting. And then in your second year as an administration resident, you actually get to lead a small area of pharmacy.
Hmm.
And I got to lead the non-sterile compounding and the high risk, at the time, high risk compounding operations, the non-sterile to sterile, at a large academic university. And so got to learn a lot about it and continue on, again, just following that natural curiosity of the passion I had and the questions and just wanting to learn more about it. And that has really been the driving force that has got me to be kind of where I'm at today. Still in the field of compounding. I don't think
Right.
compounding is going away. And there's still so much to do. So that's a little bit about me, George, a little bit about my background. What about you? Where did you get started? I don't know if I know your beginnings, your roots. Tell me more.
Right. Uh, my curiosity really started kind of as a teenager. Just nobody it was in the medical field in my family. I got really into sports and doing some different things, and got injured playing baseball one year, and ended up taking few pills here and there. Like it just piqued my curiosity. How is something that I put in my mouth affect something in my leg?
Hmm.
So that kind of
You took the
started the
leg pill,
curiosity,
obviously.
right? Obviously, I took the one thing that was going to help my leg. Um, that's really where it started. And so then starting thinking about career wise, I was interested in two things. And this is probably not going to come as any shock to you but pharmacy and mechanical engineering.
Hmm.
And think about how those combine right now in clean rooms in mechanical engineering. So I was interested in both and started in engineering only because, in my infinite wisdom at the time, determined that more classes would transfer going from
Hmm.
engineering to pharmacy than pharmacy to engineering. After my first year, decided I wanted to be a pharmacist. It kind of just clicked. It was patient care. It was patient safety. It was still the science of it all. And got a job as as a technician, really, even before I got into pharmacy school. Worked with a phenomenal pharmacist that really just taught me that it is always about the patient, always. And everything we do, whether I was out helping somebody just straighten the shelves on the OTC section in the pharmacy, it was about the patient finding the right thing and being able to find that. Went through pharmacy school, was dead set. I'm going to be a retail pharmacist. This is the greatest thing. And I love retail pharmacy. So I did that for a number of years. Retail pharmacy management, was district manager for a short period of time. Actually worked for the board of pharmacy. That's where it
Oh,
really
wow.
started kicking off here. So I went and I inspected some hospitals, and I actually inspected a home infusion pharmacy in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And I'm sure they were so wanting me to leave, but I was asking so many questions because I was so interested. I finally said, "Inspection's over. I just want to talk because this is really, really cool." Because I'd never gotten that level of detail, even doing my hospital rotations in school of what they were doing with extended stability, right? Home infusion, it's not, I'm going to make it now, send it up to the floor and give it to a patient. They had to think about it from a week perspective or whatever that was, the TPN. So I just started asking questions. In fact, those two pharmacists there became some people that I would just talk to every now and then about some of that. And my curiosity was going wild. Clean room, stability, physical and chemical stability really got me going. Then I joined the hospital. And, my goal in going to the hospital pharmacy was I really like acute care kind of stuff, patient safety, patient care, and did the IV room for a period of time, then kind of fell in love with clinical pharmacy. And then it all kind of came together with critical care and clinical pharmacy and sterile compounding. Because if you think about what I was doing in critical care, where I got a lot of training, was we gave most of our meds IV, right? It was mostly compounded IV meds. But I worked enough in the IV room. I staffed a lot in the IV room and loved it. And this morphed into, two patients on this floor have PICC line infections or whatever line infections, and we've determined that their bloodstream infection is, you know, whatever, Serratia marcescens or, you know, something. Why do two of them have it? And that really got me thinking, I wonder if it could be the IV route. You know, probably not. I mean, we know that it's probably not. I mean, there's a lot of risk in indwelling catheters and all that, but it did get me thinking about how the one to many to one principle of, you know, if I contaminate a dilution, I'm contaminating a bunch of doses for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so that kind of drove the curiosity, the environmental care, the way we kind of did things at the hospital. From there, we started looking at, you know, how can we do things better? And so we got automation. So I became the guy for automation. I ran our sterile compounding automation program. And you talking about nerding out. I know you had one at your previous job, and that is, you know, the bee's knees of sterility assurance, right? I mean, enclosed ISO 5, and it really became, that's, I think, when I determined and kind of recognized inside and said, hey, George, you're passionate about this. This is something, it meets so many different parts of your personality, from the technical standpoint, from the chemistry standpoint, all the way to the patient safety standpoint. And it just kept going from there and going and going and going. And, you know, seeing different health systems in my previous role as a consultant for automation, got to see a lot of different health systems and just understand the struggles that they were under in sterile compounding. And what's so neat that we've gotten to know each other, that we think a lot alike. And, you know, that going beyond the standard thing that you and I both talk about is so very important, because I think we can. So, that's really how it got started. And, I am just so grateful of all the people that have kind of helped me and pushed me and guided me along the way and challenged me. I love the challenges. The challenges have been, most of the fun in this. So yeah, that's kind of
interesting, neat. George, is you were talking about the IV robotics, and that it's IV robotics that actually pulled us together. That's where we first met. For background, our health system was doing due diligence and looking at all of the options on the market, and you can't just read about them, right? You got to go see them in operation. And so that's exactly what we did. We went on a tour across North Carolina where we could go to health systems and see these robots live in action. And we got to a site, and I got in there. We got garbed in, got in there, and I got introduced to George. And I don't think there's a single person more passionate about IV robotics and sterile compounding that I could ever find than George. So we instantly hit it off. Two compounding nerds geeking out, going over the specs. And,
right.
It was quite fun. But yeah, you're going to learn, audience, that George and I have a lot in common. Very passionate about sterile compounding. We always link it back to the patient because, from both of us, you heard that's where we started. We started, hands-on roles in patient care. And that's what we link everything back to. So
right. What are you doing now, Kevin? Tell us what are you doing now, and how really has everything up to that point? Because I know I know that for sure. Everything up to the point that you are doing now was built on what you've done, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's building that momentum, right? And so that curiosity is that snowball for me, right? That continues to roll down, it continues to grow. Well, some of that is now thinking like, what impact do I want to have on this industry? Right. And so it's that bigger thinking of not, hey, how can I do my job really well and take care of the patients, in my purview within my hospital or within my unit. It's now, thinking about the next step or beyond. It's like, what impact can I have on the industry? So that has led me to make some really key, career moves, myself. One is, volunteering with USP on the compounding expert committee. That was like really the first thing where it's like, wow, not only having a national impact, but having an international impact and being part of, crafting what those international standards look like. To now I work for Premier, a national group purchasing
Right.
organization, healthcare improvement company. And we have thousands of hospitals, hundreds of thousands of other sites of care all over the nation. It has just opened the door to helping more patients, right? And really, being in a position to help to craft, the industry. We're doing some key work right now with the End Drug Shortage Alliance through some harmonization efforts
Yes.
across the
Yes.
industry. And so that's where Kevin's focused on, is how can we make the biggest impact, that solves healthcare challenges. I still am wearing that director of pharmacy or the operations or even the pharmacy technician hat on many days, in thinking about, I remember, compounding this and how unsafe it was, right? How do we solve for these things? And that is my driving factor of, what I'm doing today and where Kevin's going, beyond. What about you, George? What are you doing nowadays?
Right. Well, after going from IV robotics, and it's funny you say that, the big impact, because that was one of the things that led me down the road of IV robotics. I was at a health system, and then left to do that. And I remember being asked by someone, well, you're leaving patient care. That's what you're so passionate about. You talk about it all the time. I said, yeah, I guess I am directly, but maybe not. Think about it this way. I'm going from impacting the medications and the sterile compounded preparations that I'm making at my institution now to impacting tens of thousands and maybe hundreds of thousands of doses all over the world in a short period of time. I said, the patient care is not gone. It's just
Mm,
changed a little bit, kind of like you, right? I mean, the work that you do with some of the 503B stuff is huge and impacts it may not be patient care that you traditional, but it is impacting patients and staff more so than you can ever really put your finger on.
absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
right now, I am the System Sterile Compounding Services Specialist for Prisma Health in South Carolina and Eastern Tennessee. And, came back to that role in 2023, about the same time you transitioned over to Premiere. Didn't even know it. Kind of we made career changes around the same time, which is pretty funny. But really, it was able to meld me back into that acute care, and really gets me fired up about clean room design. Again, that mechanical engineering background that I don't have, and I say to mechanical engineers when I'm talking to them, and I ask them questions about air changes or differential pressure or CFMs from here and this exhaust fan, and I'm like, remember, I'm just a pharmacist, but I have to ask you a question. And so, but we're doing some tremendous things within our organization, in the compounding realm, really focusing on quality, really focusing on where our clean rooms, where our SCAs are at, what are we trying to accomplish at these different locations, and not just for the proverbial. We need to stay in business because we're a health system and all the pressures on healthcare. But how do we take care of staff? How do we make it safe for the staff? How do we make that better for the patients? Because again, one of those things, old adages, you take care of the people that are doing all this stuff and you're taking care of your patients. And I think that's really important by the way we design our workflows, the way we are building our new clean rooms and designing them and being involved in the projects. I like to get the people that know what they're going to be doing, whether it's our Cancer Institute folks or how does this need to work for you guys, and how can we do it the best we can. And I think that's really important. And so that's been so passionate. I am surrounded by so many great people, and I will obviously say that it's been a tremendous organization and being pushed in different directions. And we talk about this all the time, forcing functions, as something to make you learn something. And I can honestly say that different areas of what I didn't think I'd be getting into, and Kevin, I'm going to give you a lot of credit for the forcing function. I'm with you on the EDSA and Drug Shortage Alliance and helping you a little bit with that. That supply chain part is never really something that's interested me that much, right? I've always been on the technical side, that step right before the patient, not that step of how do we get together and really understand the supply chain of these medications. So that's been really important. And I didn't know a lot about it, but I've been forced to learn a lot about it. And it's been really, really rewarding to get to that point. So I think that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. And you guys are doing some awesome stuff at Prisma Health. I think always impressed with your work there and your team's work there, George. And I think setting a great example, out there for others to look at, as potentially, modeling after. So, awesome job.
Yeah. I mean, it's been really rewarding, and I appreciate that. And Premier's been a big part of helping us do some of that stuff from the data side and everything else. One of the things, Kevin, that's really funny is people ask me all the time is, why do you and other people talk about going beyond the standard? The standard should be good enough. And, I have an answer to that, but how do you answer that?
Well, one of the things I think when we talk about, going beyond the standard, there's that proverbial C's get degrees, type of thing. I kind of almost relate that to here as like, yes, there is a minimum that you can do to pass go. But again, when we pull it back to patient care, like we need to make sure that they're getting the absolute best care that's possible. Right. I'm also a big fan of value-based care, right? So how 100%, do we 100% combine those two together, right? And many folks that I talk to when we talk about even implementing CGMP concepts in a 503A sterile compounding center of like, Kevin, it's too much, it's too expensive, and it's impossible.
Your head explodes, right?
Exactly. But guess what? You and I have both implemented these things, right? And we weren't given unlimited resources. Right?
No.
We weren't given a magic wand to convince folks to give us a budget, to implement IV robotics. And I literally have folks saying that. And obviously they're seeing me in year 6 of the development of everything that we did, through the negotiations, through the strategy sessions, through the getting the right people on the bus and hiring folks, and all of this stuff that led up there. Right. They saw year 6. I was like, I wish I could take them back in a time machine and show them day 0.
Yeah.
Where did we start? Right. We had to focus, yes, on closing the gap so we could get to the bare minimum standard.
Well, first you got to recognize the gaps, right? I mean, and correct. That's the hardest part.
Correct. But it's all about the patient. At the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's all about the patient. And if you have these really fragmented minimum based, practices, it's going to falter. Right. And at the end of the day, it's the patient that suffers, as part of that continuum. So that's really what I think about is I'm not okay with getting a C. Right.
Right. Sure.
And, if I was a patient, I would expect the highest level of care. So that's a big driving, force behind here, where I really want to spend time is like, how do we do it in a practical and a value-based manner? Right. That's the challenge, right? Because if you blindly just say, yes, we're going to, implement all these best practices and things, like, well, it might not make sense for every setting and every practice, to be able to do that. Right. It might mean that you need to outsource more. Mm-hmm. In some cases, it might mean you need to insource more. Right. There is no perfect answer for every system. And so I think that's really, really important, in this conversation as well. But that's from my perspective. What about you? What about you, George? What does going beyond the standard mean to you?
Right. I think you hit one of the really important things to me is, we have 25 different compounding areas in our organization. And I say this all the time to anybody that will listen to me, inside and outside our organization. If you've seen one hospital pharmacy, you've seen exactly one hospital pharmacy. And so how do we go beyond the standard, or even strive to go beyond the standard? And that's really what I talk about, is striving to go beyond the standard, because it's a journey.
Yeah.
We're not going to get the full CGMP, and we don't need to. In any case, there's probably no 503A hospital system pharmacy, community pharmacy that needs to strive for GMP level type certification. There's just no reason for that. So, but it is about Miss Jones on 6 West, and I used to say that all the time. It's about Miss Jones on 6 West. I used to say tell the staff that when we were having a busy day, like, look, guys, we need to stop, sit down, take a break, because Miss Jones in 6 West is really, really expecting the best from us. So we need to do that. But I think going beyond the standard to me, again, like I said, was a journey. I get really frustrated with people talking about it being a gold standard. Because like you said, it's a C. It's the bare minimum. We're talking about construction being bare minimum. For example, 30 air changes per hour, dealing with some engineers and some mechanical people. Okay, that's a number. That is a bare minimum number. The correct number of air changes per hour are the number of air changes that it takes to maintain ISO class certification of what you're looking for. And if you have a room that has 25 people in it all the time, you may need 50 air changes per hour. So, the standards are there for a reason, but, we need to understand that going beyond the standard is a culture, and just, it does not necessarily be an endpoint, but it's a culture, and it's kind of a part of what we think in a journey. And I really like to think that, as, some people have told us, as we talk about these things, is just keep talking about it and just keep trying to raise awareness and understanding that we can do better. Because like you said, how do we operationalize it is a part of the challenge that we have as leaders, right? It's easy to say, here's this USP 797 document or USP 800 document, do it. Well, that doesn't make any sense in most cases. And people look at you and go, what do you want?
Right. They're missing the purpose, right? If to your point, if you look at these standards as a checklist, you're gonna approach it like a checklist, right? You need meaning, behind it if you really want to instill that. And so, you kind of were talking about the patient, care stuff. It was like some of it is like a mindset shift.
Oh, sure.
Like if you come in and say, you know what, our goal is 0 patient harm, right? That then changes this whole calculus, right? About how you go and approach this. Because even if if you're research, high reliability organizations, you look at the nuclear industry, the aviation industry, you look at the
industry, all of that. Yeah,
exactly. You look at the percentages of, errors or, misadventures that occur, right? Look at the errors in compounding and in healthcare, right? If you compare them, they are on complete opposite ends of the spectrum.
Right.
Right. So the biggest challenge in this is not fancy knowledge about how to build and design a clean room and how to validate a practice. In many ways, that's the easy stuff. The hard stuff is the attitudes and behaviors about this. Right. We can't see the microbes, right? Unless you're a fancy microbiologist and can paint them on some, plates. And we know some of those out there.
We know some of those people.
That's right. But you don't see particulates, right?
Right.
The reason we have to monitor is because there's things that we can't see, right? And so it becomes this, in Kevin's opinion, this attitude and behavior to wanting to go above and beyond the standard of folks not connecting with the reason or the purpose, right?
Right.
And if, so this is more of a leadership, gap than in my opinion, than anything. And, I know, we were talking about our background, but that's really what I was interested in, becoming a pharmacy administration leader before actually I knew I wanted to be a pharmacist.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right? Because there's so many of these types of things that the gap is leadership. The gap is connecting to purpose, leading teams, getting on a centralized goal. That's what it's all about. It's more than just, we want to go above the standard so we can get our gold star and we can be recognized. Right? That's
sure.
like number 100 on the list, right? It's a good thing to have. It's good to have those those wins, but it's about the goal of eliminating patient harm, and it can be done. If we got to the point of a HRO, a high reliability organization
Sure.
in sterile compounding, it is achievable. But we got to get the right leaders on board to make these changes. And when you called me and said, "Hey, Kevin, do you want to start a podcast?" You remember that, George?
I do. I didn't call you. You called me the next day, but it was a Sunday evening, and I texted you, and I'm like, "Hey, what do you think?" And then all of a sudden, I got like 8 texts in a row, and then we ended up with an early morning phone call. Yeah, I do remember. But it's funny you bring that up, because I was going to ask you, what did you think about that?
Yeah. I need to pull up my messages and see. I don't know if I said, "Let's do this," or like, "Let's go," but it had to have been a fraction of a second of when the text hit my phone to when I replied to you.
Right.
Because again, it's how do you get the messaging out? Right. And how do we start solving these gaps, start closing these things in? And at the end of the day, I didn't even think about this as would people want to listen in? If they listen in, great. They join us along this journey, great, right? That would be amazing. And if no one listens in, guess what? Well, at least I got a fancy podcast microphone, out of this.
Right.
We can use it for maybe
Other stuff.
maybe a future music career. We'll see. I don't know, but no, I'm sticking with compounding for now.
And yeah, as you should. And I'm going to keep my first job too, because I'm not going to make it as a professional cyclist or triathlete. I just
You go.
feel like at my age, at 58, it's probably, I think I've missed my prime, but that's okay. I think where we are in our careers are good places, and a lot of passion and a lot of good we still can bring this subject in our profession. So I think it's great. So fun. So yeah, we talk about what you need to look back at those messages. I need to look back at it, because I promise you, I think it was like 8 in a row. Like ding, 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 ding. I'm like, okay, I think he's interested, because I couldn't even get my phone up fast enough. So, what do you think? What do you want this podcast to look like? I mean, we've got some ideas, but what are we going to do? I mean, I'm not going to say what are we going to do. We know what we're going to do, right? But let's talk about with our listeners what we see and what kind of our vision is.
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think some of the things that immediately went through my mind, right, is I'm almost doing this for me in a way. Like I know that sounds like
okay,
weird.
Here we go.
Like
forcing functions, right? We're going to do some forcing function.
But like, I would love a podcast to talk about all the things that we're going to be talking about. And so if no one else is going to do it, guess what? Kevin and George are going to do it. Right. And, I don't know, maybe I'm going through a little bit of exhaustion of just seeing, GLP compounding after GLP compounding. It's important, but guess what, George? There's so much other
more
stuff that we got to be talking about that impacts other industries. Like again, it's important, but there's a lot of other stuff to discuss. And so, that too was a driving force of saying, yes, we need to close this gap. We need to give, an opportunity to bring in guests, to bring in experts in various fields.
Sure.
And get them to share their stories and their best practices with you. So I think that'll be a big, part of it, bringing in the expert guests in the various areas, keeping a good cadence of, different sectors and different areas that are really pertinent. Talking about education opportunities,
for sure.
I think, George, you and I are lifelong learners. We're constantly, if we're not giving a webinar, we're watching webinars or reading articles. And so we want to let you in on, some of that, what are some things that are upcoming? What are things that have been published? But yeah, I don't know, George, what else? What else on your list?
What are some things that the listeners want us to talk about? Right. I mean, we just did a presentation in December on visual inspection. I mean, we gave it a lot of due diligence and probably a lot that it needed in the chapter. So we talked a lot about that. I would really love engagement from our listeners with topics. I don't want to turn it into another forum, but I think there's some good topics that our listeners could send in that'll get us on a discussion, and it may turn into a topic discussion. One of the things I struggle with in our organization a lot is protect from light. We overuse protect from light measures like crazy. I think that's a great topic. I get questions about that at least once a week.
Yeah.
But I think that's really
Meds
um,
plus.
a
So I
lot
can't go
that
and
I want,
yeah.
right? We can keep going and keep going. But I think, um, when I first texted you and said, hey, do you want to do this? My brain immediately went to, how can we give a forum and raise up the next Kevin Hansen, the next Patty Keenley? How do we get those impactful, and I call you guys giants. I call you guys giants and patriarchs and matriarchs in sterile compounding. Eric Costango. I mean, let's go. Jim Wagner. Let's go on and on. I mean, I
George
can
Smith.
go on and on. You can go on and on. But really what it boils down to is, we've got a lot of great people in our, in sterile compounding doing a lot of great things. I want to hear from them. I want to get to know them. I want to give them the opportunity to tell their story, to tell us and tell everybody what they're doing at their organization, what they're not doing at their organization, what they want to do better, what they want to learn. And I think that is kind of really, you talked about leadership. How do we raise up that next set of leaders?
Yeah.
In this area? I don't want leadership to be not passionate. I've heard people say, well, I'm going to go into sterile compounding because it seems like there's a lot of sterile compounding jobs out there. Like, well, okay, that's a reason you want a job. I get it. But I want you to be passionate. I want you to have maybe not the same level of nerdiness and passion that I have, but at least understand it's more than just having a management and a leadership job. There's so many different opportunities. I really think that's where I want it to be and where I want it to go.
Yeah, I like that. And, when you said that, about just being a job, that was my foot into pharmacy. Was it just started as just a job, but the difference was I had somebody that gave me a chance, somebody that believed in me. Certainly had mentors, along the way. And if we can do that to help others, through, this platform, that to me, I think would be really rewarding, from my end and certainly equate to the time spent in here and we're having fun. I think at the end of the day too, we're going to have fun. I look forward to, working with you along this journey, George, and our guest list is looking incredible. So there's lots of fun stuff,
lots of fun stuff planned. You never know. We may even do one of these on location at a meeting we go to. How much fun would that be? It's the first time he's heard that. By the way,
true story.
So that's going to be fun. One of the other things, we talked about doing, and we're going to do real quickly right now is making sure that there's upcoming educational opportunities, not ones that we're doing. We'll always link them in the show notes. But for example, the 2026 Compounding Summit put on by the North Carolina Board of Pharmacy. And Crystal Stefanik and that group is phenomenal. It's February 24 through 26 in Chapel Hill. We've both been to it. I'm not going to be able to attend this year, right?
Great leaders. What a awesome summit.
Exactly.
And kudos to North Carolina Board of Pharmacy.
Absolutely. Trying to get that going. So that's really a nice thing coming up. Our friend Annie Lambert and Revelation Pharma's Rebecca Johnson has a webinar coming up, Advanced Compounding in Action, Implementing USP 797 for Complex Workflows. It looks like it's going to be February 24th from 1 to 2. I'll throw the link in the show notes. Hey, if you're at the North Carolina, you're going to have to do both. That's just what you're going to have to do, right? And then the FDA Compounding Quality Center of Excellence is usually every year. A multi-day training for instructor-led course on really going beyond. We're talking aseptic processing, sterile filtration, that level, and that's going to be in College Station, Texas, in March 16 through 18. So, awesome. We're going to try to keep up with that as best we can. If you guys have ideas or things that we miss, hey, shoot it to us. We'll stick them in the show notes, and so people can see them, because I think it's really important. Again, one of the things we're after is people getting seen, getting noticed, and as one of our colleagues says, just getting up to bat, right? Just getting up to bat and making a difference. So I think that's really important.
Awesome. Well, George, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Did we just officially launch episode 1 of our podcast?
I think we did. Wow. We've talked about it. You got excited about it. It wasn't that long ago that we just said, hey, we were going to do this. We did just launch episode number 1. And that's exciting. So what you can do for us is, really like it, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your colleagues at your hospital, post it on LinkedIn. We've got our own LinkedIn page as well. First Air on LinkedIn. So, but you can see this or hear it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. But hey, let's get the word around. Again, we just said it. Kevin said it earlier. We're going to do this if we get 1 listener. We're still going to do this because it's going to force us to learn some things. I think we'll get more than 1 listener. I'm sure I can convince my daughter, who's a pharmacist, to watch it and listen to it as well. So in fact, I'll make her. So we'll probably go down that route. So, but we'd appreciate any support you got, just getting the word out, because this is going to be fun. We're going to try to make it worthwhile for you.
Yeah, we got a lot of really awesome topics planned, some awesome guests that we're lining up. It's really now of like getting them in a row, and we're just so excited. So more ahead, and at the end of the day, George and I in this podcast, we're here so you can stay informed, you can be inspired and ready to elevate your own compounding practices. So thank you for listening in.
And we'll see you soon.